The Guardian released a devastating story exposing a really dark secret of the news agency, the Associated Press. They say the following. The AP entered a formal cooperation with the Hitler regime in the 1930s, supplying American newspapers with material directly produced and selected by the Nazi propaganda ministry. Archive material unearthed by a German historian has revealed. When the Nazi Party seized power in Germany in 1933, one of its first objectives was to bring into line not just the national press, but international media too. The Guardian was banned within a year, and by 1935, even bigger British-American agencies such as Keystone and Wide World Photos were forced to close their bureaus after coming under attack for employing Jewish journalists. Associated Press was the only Western news agency able to stay open in Hitler's Germany, continuing to operate until the U.S. entered the war in 1941. It thus found itself in the presumably profitable situation of being the prime channel for news reports and pictures out of the totalitarian state. The AP was only able to retain its access by entering into a mutually beneficial two-way cooperation with the Nazi regime. The New York-based agency ceded control of its output by signing up to the so-called editor's law, promising not to publish any material calculated to weaken the strength of the Reich abroad and at home. This law required AP to hire reporters who also worked for the Nazi Party's propaganda division. One of the four photographers employed by the Associated Press in the 1930s, Franz Roth, was a member of the SS paramilitary unit's propaganda division, whose photographs were personally chosen by Hitler. The AP also allowed the Nazi regime to use its photo archives for its virulently anti-Semitic propaganda literature. Wow. Now, why is this story so incredibly important? Because it shows you what happens when media bends to power. What happens is journalism becomes the opposite of what it's supposed to be. Journalism is supposed to hold people in power accountable. It's supposed to fact check. It's supposed to give information. It's supposed to give you the data no matter where the conclusions may lead. So, if you're covering the Nazi regime objectively, you pretty quickly come to the conclusion these are savage, brutal motherfuckers. But when you have media bending to power, inevitably they end up just doing their bidding. They literally help the Nazi regime with anti-Semitic propaganda by giving them pictures from their archive and things of that nature. So, you can come up with examples of this today, and this raises the question today, well, what authoritarian regimes is the AP bending to today? What authoritarian regimes are all the different news agencies bending to today? This is the exact opposite of what journalism is supposed to be. This is selling out for access. Now, you might say, well, Kyle, then they wouldn't have gotten anything out of Nazi Germany if they didn't agree to cooperate with the Nazi regime. Not true. So what happens is, at the time, you leave like everybody else left just to protect yourselves, but that doesn't mean there aren't people that are on the ground that are still there that can't give you information about it. Now, I know that's a dangerous thing, but at the time, people didn't even know the extent of how dangerous Nazi Germany was. We knew aspects of it, we knew the beginning of it, and we know where it eventually led, but it's impossible to have people on the ground and do information and then report back to you. You're supposed to be adversarial. That's the whole fucking point, man. That's the whole point. Journalism is supposed to say, government's fucking you over. Look at what they're doing. Here are the facts. Oh my God, this is an issue. Hey guys, you see what's going on over here? But instead, oftentimes, it just bends to power. Now, fast forward to today, I'm going to make an analogy here that a lot of you aren't going to like. During the height of the Bush years, when they had an international torture regime, the New York Times decided, we're not going to call it torture because that's a politically potent term, and that rigs the debate on the side of the Democrats and on the side of the liberals in the country. Well, we're going to call it enhanced interrogation. Well, you just did a version of this. You just said, well, it's power, I need access. They don't like that I'm saying torture. Torture is something that rigs the debate in favor of the Democrats because it's true. So I'll call it enhanced interrogation. And then, therefore, in the minds of people who read the paper, It's not really torture, is it? When we do it, it's not torture. It's enhanced interrogation. It can't be as strong as torture. It's not as strong as torture. So I guess we're still the good guys, even though we're doing all these horrible things. Well, there you have it. That's another version of this. Another version of bend to power, because then I get access and I get a pat on the head and I get more money. And, my agency gets prestige. Well, maybe in the short run, but in the long run, people look at what you do and they say, you missed the fucking point of journalism. You're an embarrassment to the field.